I have a very special guest today. She is a fellow 10X business coach, so that's how I met her. Her name is Allison Wheeler, and she is from Australia. So, Allison, thank you for being here, and tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nick, for having me on. Yes, I am on the other side of the world to you, and we did meet through the Grant Cardone 10X community. So I am a business coach. I've been coaching now for around about 13 years. My background, I'm an occupational therapist by profession. That's where I started out. A pro athlete. I've been an athlete for majority of my life as well, and author. So I've also written a book called Living from the Inside Out: How to Become a Modern Day Wonder Woman. And I'm a mum, a wife, a dog mum. So, keep a full busy life as we do.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Can you tell us more about your, uh, being a pro athlete? Because me personally, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, look, I mean, my athletic career probably started when I was about 6 or 7. My father was a runner, so we got very heavily involved with athletics. So that's kind of where my uh, desire or my interest in sports started. I think we were a sporting family. We would go to athletics every week and do that. Then that career got ended quite quickly due to injury, an Achilles injury. So then I was sort of floundered around to try and find what was going to be next. Just a bunch of different things. And the next sport I got heavily involved in was rowing. So I rowed in New Zealand for a very long time. I'm from New Zealand originally, and did very well with that. Trialled for New Zealand, all those sorts of things. Then, when I finished my degree, I moved to Australia, and then you know tried a few different sports. Nothing of which was really resonating particularly. I went into Olympic weightlifting. And won at national level doing that. And then I was I thought, well, I'll train for the Commonwealth Games, and then I decided that it was better to have my daughter. Well, I had this bizarre calling to have my child, have my daughter, and well, it felt bizarre because I was in the middle of training to go to the Commonwealth Games. But we worked it out that I could still go. So, like a week after having her, I was back in the gym training, but nothing was quite the same in terms of priorities had changed. So I was like, yeah, okay, maybe not. Um, so then after I had her, so I still trained, and then I did CrossFit for quite some time, competed in that as well. Found that very hard on my body. So in the time of sort of finding a new direction with that, I went into bodybuilding, figure bodybuilding, natural figure bodybuilding, to be very clear. And I won my pro card with Miss Fitness Australia doing that. So my next far away, if I go back on stage, or when I go back on stage, will be as pro for them and then internationally. So I've done a few sports. Generally, if I do a sport, it's to the highest possible level. But I think that's just the general jam. If I do, from my perspective, why not? Why not give something your everything, and you don't know where your everything is until you go to the edge, right, of what you think it is.
Yeah, exactly. That's so awesome that you've done all of that, and bodybuilding. That's not easy, and you're you're like a beacon of like a person like being in shape and taking care of your health, and it's just really inspiring to I get to know you, see what you've done in the past, see what you're doing now. It's really awesome.
Ah, thanks, Nick. You're an inspiration too.
Well, thank you. So you're an amazing entrepreneur, so let's talk more about that. um Can you share like what networking has done for you and your business?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's such an interesting thing, networking, right? Because I think it's very easy in a digital age to hide behind your computer.
Mm-hmm.
Super easy to do so, right? Like, oh, well, I'm just going to set up and we'll do everything online and I'll have this incredibly massive audience and my whole entire business will blow up. Well, yes, it can do that, but the time in which it takes is actually, that time frame for we don't always have a, I hate the word realistic. We don't always have a correct perspective. How about that on what that takes and how long that takes? In the meantime, whilst you're doing that, what are you going to do to blow up your business? Right, like you require people. So, from my perspective, in terms of like I've done multiple iterations of my life, my business, the establishment phase and the continuation to blow it up has always been network and
Mm-hmm.
going out into the actual community and talking to real people, physically actually speaking to someone, or and developing those relationships is key. It's incredibly important, uh, in my opinion, and from my experience, because it's not always that person that you meet. I mean, it might be,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also who that person knows or who that person can potentially connect you with. And I think in our haste to have things yesterday, we forget that, you know, we develop relationships, and how key that is, and it does take time, but the payoff on the back end of doing that is so huge. Apart from the fact that people are fascinating, and so to understand people's stories, and you can learn so much just from having a conversation with someone, particularly for your business, because all of that's great data for your marketing. You can
Mm-hmm.
translate that into great marketing content, right? Like, so there's so many ways to utilize networking, but I find it's an incredibly important resource, and it's incredibly uncomfortable, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
is it comfortable to turn up into a room with people you don't know, to have to do a 30-second or 60-second pitch, which makes you feel uncomfortable? No, none of that's comfortable. I don't know anyone that goes, yay, I'm going to walk into a room with someone all these people that I don't know, that I've never met, barely know where I'm turning up to. Like the whole process is uncomfortable. But again, it's been able to be comfortable with discomfort and still go anyway, because
Mm-hmm.
you just never quite know who you're going to meet and what that will connect you to. And for me, particularly this iteration of my business, networking has been incredibly important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It is just so important, but it is also difficult to do. Like, you really gotta push yourself out of your comfort zone. You know, m- Me and you got to attend an event together in Miami. We live across the world, and we were able to actually meet in person. And I know the first day, I kind of stuck by you because I was just like, I know you, so I'm comfortable, with you. So I kind of stuck by you for like the first day. But then after that, I started to, talk to more people, I pushed myself out of my comfort zone, and I met some amazing people, and now they're my friends, and I'm just so happy that I pushed myself to get out and meet new people. So yeah, it's incredibly important.
I agree.
So, um, how do you maintain a healthy work-life balance while running your business?
Yeah. In terms of, I'm not sure what work life balance necessarily means, right? So that is an interesting question. I think it is work life blending,
Hmm I
more than
I
work life.
actually, I figured this is where you were gonna take it because we are 10x. So we look at
That's
things a little bit different.
right. We do look at things a little bit different. And I think I've always looked at things a little bit differently in terms of what that balance is. A lot of times we strive for balance. But if you think about what that means, right? So when something is in balance, there is no movement, there's complete homeostasis. So a seesaw in balance isn't going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem with, if you put everything into complete balance, is your life growing? Is it, are you striving for something that's actually even a tangible thing that is obtainable? I think when most of my clients, when they're saying I want more work life balance, is they want more time to be able to do the things in their life that they value and are important. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's like, okay, what are my values and how do I want to control my time in order to feel like I'm fulfilling all of the things that I need and that the other people that are important to me need in my life. So I think it's incredibly important to have a tight schedule. Like, you have to schedule your time. You have to be organized with your time in order to even feel like you can have any sort of resemblance of what most people believe is work life balance. And but also being calm enough to know that everything's fluid. So although today might feel like it's leaning way more in one direction, that doesn't mean it will be like that tomorrow. Additionally, asking for help, right? Um, Going through and doing and looking at your time and going, what are some of the tasks that I can get off my plate and I can delegate and I can give to someone else? You don't need to be a martyr and be doing absolutely everything to prove that it's difficult, or to prove that you are a superhero and can handle everything. Success isn't developed, as you as an island. You really have to look at that. And I'm going through another iteration of that for myself again, Nick, is looking at my time. Okay, what supports can I get in place? What can I offload so that, because it doesn't feel imbalanced, right? Like there are times where it feels incredibly unbalanced. It's like, okay, all right, well, what do I actually need right now? I was talking to a client recently. She said, I just need space. I was like, okay, because she doesn't feel like she has any balance. I'm like, what do you need space from? People. Okay, all right. Well, you're not taking that space from people. So what do you really need space from? Like, why do you feel like you have no space? And anyway, when we drilled it down, she just has this massive list of incomplete tasks that feel like they're impinging on her, and she so then feels like she has no space, no time. So I was like, okay, well, let's get a list of all of these unfinished tasks. Let's prioritize them out. What actually do you not even need in your life anymore? And how are we going to tackle this thing in order to create actual space, right? So sometimes it's also those things that we just keep in our mind, that they chew up so much space. We don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like we have any time. We don't feel like we have any work life balance, but it's amazing when you start completing tasks also how much better you feel from a balance perspective. But I think the only way to feel like you have some resemblance of balance is to run an extremely tight schedule and feel like you're then in control of that instead of it
Mm-hmm.
controlling you.
Yep,
But also,
exactly.
schedule. It's like, put in the things that are important to you. If health's
Yeah.
important, make sure you're exercising. If family's important, make sure it's in the schedule. Because I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee you, if it's not on the schedule, you won't do it, right?
Yep, exactly. That's what I've been learning. If I don't put something on my schedule, number one, it doesn't get done. Number two, I if there's nothing on my schedule, I do tasks that are not going to help me at all. So I believe it's very important to have a schedule, and like you said, I complete all your tasks. This is something that I recently started working on, and I still have a lot of uncompleted tasks, but I'm trying to knock all of them out. And yeah, it's like a weight lifting off your shoulders. Like it's amazing, like how much calmer you feel just by not having that in the back of your mind all the time. You may not even realize it, but your subconscious is thinking about those things that you have not completed. So yeah, getting rid of those is like it's extremely helpful.
Oh, 100%. Exactly.
Can you discuss a moment when you had to pivot your business model? Did you have to, make a definite, pivot because something wasn't working out?
Yeah, sure. So, I left a business that I'd been in for 13 years, but over a year ago. That was a massive pivot. Was no longer in alignment. I'd grown as far as I could with that business. I tapped it out to the degree that I could. There was just, I had put, and I looked at it from so many angles to go, okay, how else can I grow? Where else can this grow? And I came to realize that that was as good as it was going to grow. Like that was its
Mm-hmm.
maximum capacity, and I had grown beyond that. And it's like, well, I can just sort of treading my wheels, and that's not in alignment with my values. So it's becoming very out of alignment with my values. I wasn't sure what to do. I had a responsibility for a very big team. It was a very success. It was successful. Felt like I had golden handcuffs from with it, but more and more, I felt this discourse inside. I wasn't, it's just, I was getting exhausted. I'm like, it's just not right. So I had to make, I felt like I was in a position where, okay, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I looked at um, pivoting. I attempted to pivot within that business to change things, none of which seemed to work. So it came down to a decision of, well, basically, you're leaving. Basically, that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Time is done on that. And it was really, really challenging to detach my self image and self worth from that business and reattach it to the actual goal, because the goal hasn't changed. It's
Mm-hmm.
just I needed to change the vehicle. But that's easier said than done when you've tied your self worth up in what that was, because I had developed a lot of success for that, a lot of admiration, a lot of all of that, right? A lot of responsibility for other people. So to walk away and go, well, I'm leaving this. It's like, well, who am I? What are people going to think? Starting again. Am I really going to start again? Like far out, right? Um, so that was an incredible challenging, and also to jump really without a solid plan. That's not usually what I would do, but I couldn't get any thinking from space, or I couldn't be in that and then develop the new thing successfully. I needed to be completely separate and to kind of rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I mean, I've done many pivots, but that would be the most recent, and the certainly the most recent biggest pivot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taken time to rebuild me, rebuild my image of myself, rebuild my confidence in myself. It's amazing when you hang on to things for too long. It's actually really damaging to your own identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we pivot, and if we take too long to pivot too, there's that kind of aspect of not just the doing, but the being and the having, and how much that needs to be worked on in order to then, have the new thing. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I definitely, I just like to hear about some challenges that we face, because as entrepreneurs, we face, thousands of them. So, it's nice to be able to help somebody through theirs just by, talking about our own. So, we call you Wonder Woman, because you're just incredible in, your fitness, your business, everything. But I like to do like a little thing that I call humanizing my guests. So, can you tell us about like your childhood, like how it was growing up?
Yeah, look, I had a very fortunate childhood. I grew up. My mum and my dad ran. So my grandparents owned a. I don't know what they called it in the states. So like a holiday park where you could caravan and have cabins and tents and things, like a big kind of you know
Oh, okay. Yep.
Um, so my grandparents owned that. That was their business. My parents ran it. So I was and it was right on the beach. So I grew up in probably one of the most beautiful spots, just gorgeous. So I could go down to the beach every day, which we did. We spent so much time outside at the beach. Mind you, I think we just got kicked outside. It's like, get outside. Which was awesome. So my sisters, I have two sisters, they're twins. So they're older than me. My sisters and I, off we'd go, and I would toddle along with them, usually yelling out, wait for me. So I had both my parents, we lived in the main house and there was a granny flat. My grandparents were in the granny flat. So I grew up with both my parents and my grandparents sort of there as part of the family unit for quite a majority of my younger years,
Mhm.
on the beach. So we had such a beautiful outdoor lifestyle. It was amazing. And then we moved to a more sort of rural area, which is then when I got involved in rowing. Because like, well, okay, now what am I going to do? Um, what else do you do in a country town? It was a really small town,
Mhm.
so you either rode a horse, rode a boat, or you played rugby. So I'm like, all
Mhm.
right, well, I don't really want to ride a horse, and I'm not playing rugby. It hurts. So I'm like, all right, I'll do rowing. And our whole family got involved in that, right? So it was like, I honestly think it was just easier. My parents were like, you are all going to the same location and you're all doing the same sport. We're doing one traffic, we're one taxi.
Yep.
I'm fairly sure that was the reasoning behind it, but who knows? I've never asked that question. That's just my assumption.
Mhm.
But we would spend an incredible amount of time on the water before school, after school, all through that. School sucked. I hated school. Not like I did well at school. I just had, and thank goodness I had sport to pour my energy into, because kids can be really not nice, and I had several not nice kids around in terms of bullying and stuff like that. Like that was really sucked in my later years of school. Not in my beginning school, but certainly in my later years, that were
Mhm.
completely terrible. And then I went on to university, finished my degree, and then I moved. After that, I moved to Australia. Obviously, started
Mhm.
a new life here. But I mean, obviously, childhood had its own trials and tribulations. My dad was unwell. He had two kidney transplants through my um, when I was a kid,
Mhm.
and that like is extremely unsettling to say the least for a family, and pretty scary.
Mhm.
So dealing with those things and what that meant, potentially losing him. I mean, we have lost him as it is anyway, but potentially losing him a couple of times before time. I mean, I still think we lost him before time anyway, but
Mhm.
that was for different reasons. So, yeah, that's my childhood. I mean, I feel like I had a very, um, like a great childhood in terms of having my grandparents there, my parents there, lots of outdoors time. But I think that was also the time. I don't think,
Mhm.
compared to now, people don't spend anywhere near as much time outdoors.
Yep. Exactly. I thank you for sharing that. It's really cool to hear like where you came from. So I get to know my guests a little better, and I know you outside of this too, so it's really cool. So uh, I have one last question, and that is, what does my slogan "Your abilities are infinite" mean to you?
Yeah, I think uh, we we underestimate our potential so often. I do it, you do it, we all do
Mhm.
this thing, and then what it's like. Then you are. limiting yourself to even giving it a go. So if I
Mhm.
can't do that, it's like, well, how do you even know?
Mhm.
How do you even know unless so afraid of failing or rejection or all these things? But how do you know if you don't give it a go? And like, we're so much more capable, despite what we say in our minds and our heads, and despite what other people say. Like, we are like, as a being, as a person, as even as a body, we're so resilient, and so much can change if we are willing to change, right?
Mhm.
It's like, as we get older, I think we get more resistance to changing, but it's the one constant in life, is that things will change.
Mhm.
And we have this, honestly, Nick, I think we have so much more capability to cope with that if we're willing to allow ourselves to change.
Yeah, I agree. I love that answer. That was amazing because that's like basically how I think of it. I mean, you know what I go through. Like I continue to push myself to figure out what more I can do. And it's like daily I figure something else out. It's like, oh, hey, I can do that now. Or I figure out better ways to do the tasks that I've been doing my whole life. I constantly evolving and just, doing more and pushing myself so then I can figure out like what I can do. There are things that I don't like to say I can't, but there's things that I shouldn't do because it's either dangerous or I might get hurt. But most of it I will give my own effort towards it and do it my own way. So yeah, I love your answer. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Nick. And you are an absolute testament to that, right? Like, it's inspiring to be part of your journey, because I get to
Hmm.
see that. And it cuts through your own excuses. I'm like, well, Nick's given this a red hot crack. Why am I not? Like, or and vice versa. Right? It's like,
Hmm.
all right, I got nothing. Just get over yourself and keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so where can people find you?
Yeah, probably the easiest is on social media. My social media handles at the Allison Wheeler, with one L, and
Mhm.
or on my website, which is theallisonwheeler.com.
Easy enough, just like me. Awesome.
That's right.
Well, this was really great. Thank you for doing this with me, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Nick.
Oh yeah. All right, everyone. That was another episode of the Infinite Abilities podcast, and I will see you on the next one. And remember, your abilities are infinite.